Hey everyone, Tina McGlynn with another episode of Life and Stories. And I'm so excited today because for those of you who've been following me on Facebook, I am finally getting my solar panel system on my forever home and friends. I have to remember that. I'm with Covey Murray, who works with Excel Solar. Actually, it's Excel Home Solar. Am I saying it correct, Covey?
That's the name of our residential division.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So I sat with your sales guy, and my husband forbade me to tell him my background until after, and I had to tell him because I felt bad. So at the end, when I said, well, I'm going to go with you, I'm real busy right now. But by the way, I went to college for solar engineering, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But so I have been following the solar movement since I was a child growing up in Syracuse, New York. Had a solar garden, went to college on a solar engineering scholarship. And I have all sorts of solar gadgets, and occasionally people would laugh at me. And, I forgot to tell you, I actually used to install solar golf cart kits. I forgot about that. So tell me how you got into the solar industry.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me on today, Tina. It's a real honor. We're really excited to be doing your project for you. And I'm sure Ken told you when you had him out, but, I bet you really surprised him when you threw that surprise on him at the end, because he's fairly new. He's only been doing this about a year.
Yeah.
Lot to learn, and he loves it. He's also in a kind of a part-time capacity. But we're really excited to get your project underway, and we're already working on it behind the scenes. So, I'm the director of sales for the Florida division of Excel Home Solar, and I've been with the company just under 4 years.
Okay.
I was actually in a completely different field before this. I was in the medical field.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and never done sales, I knew nothing about solar, at 35, 36 years old when I started, and had never really even looked into it, even though we were homeowners. I'd seen them popping up in the neighborhood. My wife and I actually got pregnant, and it was going to be our third little guy. And at the same time, there was some issues with the medical facility I worked at as far as their billing and stuff. Long story, but I needed to start figuring out a way to maybe make a little bit more money before number 3 came.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine used to work for this company, and he'd actually said that my personality and stuff would be a good fit. I should at least check it out. And I really dismissed it. And then when all of those things happened, I gave him a call and talked to him about it a little bit, went out and met with the owner. I went on a day of ride-alongs with him, and we did 3 appointments, and we sold 2 of them that day.
Wow.
And this is awesome. I think I could do this. And the rest is kind of history. I jumped in with both feet, completely committed myself to it. And it doesn't hurt that Excel Home Solar is a local family-owned and operated company.
Right.
Because one of the things that really, mean a lot to me, even being with the company for almost 4 years, is how much they care about the employees, how much they bend over if there's ever an issue on the homeowner's end. And so it's been great. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've been, like I said, waiting a long time in my first home. If I'm sure you remember Florida, I was so frustrated when I started doing some solar contracting work, always having to go up north because, just a few years ago, it wasn't conducive to do, solar here in Florida because of the regulation wasn't there. And it used to drive me nuts and say, here I am in the Sunshine State. And at that time, I want to say 2012, we were still number 17 in solar installations. And I always started out my talks about solar saying, what is the name of our state, or what is our state known for? And of course, the audience would say, the Sunshine State. And then I'd always get my little graph out, and why are we way down below New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all the way down. And so I was thrilled where, the voters did the right thing. Of course, I won't even talk about the political nonsense that happened, but we finally got the right regulation and the right path towards, home ownership, solar, home ownership, solar homeowners being able to have solar on their roof. I mean, to me, it was such a no-brainer. And I spent 3 years stumping up in Tallahassee till it made me sick in my stomach, and I had to stop doing it. So I'm glad that we moved past that, because I'm, sitting on a property where my software rates me between 93 and 97%, solar capacity. So I expect my bills to be, nothing. But I want to talk about something that homeowners forget is you can't just stick a solar panel system on your roof, can you? There's some other things you have to do.
So, and every system is designed custom for that family. My neighborhood's a good example. We have kind of a cookie cutter neighborhood. It's a Lennar build, and there's 12 to 20 different models in here. And so we've done about 70, 80 homes in this particular neighborhood. My company has, and we've done the same model more than once, but they sometimes have very different amounts of solar panels on the roof just because of the usage patterns.
Yeah, that and I was a little concerned with all the third party when I owned World of Solar. I had a lot of people call me, even though I did not do residential projects at all. Because of the Google placement and because there were so few solar companies back then, I still had people calling me even after I moved on to different work. And their biggest question was, how do I pick an installer? And there were so many third party companies that were popping up that I started doing some talks about how to pick a solar installer, because you want, anybody listening out there, you want to use a company like Excel that does their own installation. Don't go with a third party because, one, you're going to pay more, and two, it can get a little tricky. So, definitely want to go with somebody that Covey works for, Excel Solar, so that they are the installer, not a third party. And there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, and actually, when we started, the owner Jim and one or two of his buddies were going door to door, and they were subbing out all the work. This was about 7 years ago, a little less, and we've grown to the point where we do, the sales, the fulfillment, the electrical. It's our license numbers on the permits. We've actually gotten so big that we are one of the companies that some of those sales guys sub out their work to. So we do
Yeah.
all of our own installs, but we even do
Yep.
some of those companies' installs as well.
Yep.
The other great thing about us is that we have our own service guys. So if there's ever an issue, right, our customers that buy from us, they don't ever have to pay for our guys to come out and do the service call or, labor on the warranty replacements over the life of the warranties from the manufacturer.
Yeah, and I like that. And again, being local, because there are some, national companies that pop in and out. But, I certainly appreciate the fact that, Ken and you and the owner, they live here locally. It's in the local economy. And, like you said, if there's ever an issue, which I don't, expect there to be, you're not calling, what do they call it? A call center. Like
Yeah.
a couple of companies that I called, you actually are talking to a call center. You're not talking to an actual office, standalone. So, what kind of advice can you give to people who are considering solar and they're looking at their electric bill?
So, the main thing you're going to see on your electric bill is customer charges and charges for kilowatt hours, right? In Florida, we're not a time of use state. So meaning our bills are the same cost per kilowatt hour, 24 hours a day. Most of the companies charge more when you go over 1,000 kilowatt hours in any given month. So, a good gauge is how many kilowatt hours am I using in, January and February versus July and August is usually a good way to get an average. The big utility companies, Duke, TECO, FP&L, they all have a graph right on your bill that shows a whole year's usage. So, all of our sales guys are trained to get the most recent bill in hand when they come to visit you in your home, and they'll design the system with you right there in your home, and show you exactly what you need to do, whatever percentage of offset you want.
Yeah, and that's what I like, because there's so many. I mean, you probably have not seen the picture of my home, but it's a unique situation. It's a home that was built in 1959 and added on 4 times. So we have 4 different roofs, all tied together. So we'll put a little here, we'll put a little there. So, but in the end of the day, it will work. So, I always tell people, don't ever discount solar, especially, if my rule of thumb is, look, if your electric's over, 150, why not? If you're in a home that you're going to stay in, and I'm not happy with the people that say solar is not an investment when you go sell your home. I completely disagree. That's just about educating. That's all that is.
So
Especially with technology, right? That you guys have that you can actually look. Can you talk about how you can look at what's going on?
absolutely. Let
Yeah.
me address the first thing first, though. So California, right, who's been doing solar a long time,
Yeah.
is showing their statistics and there's comps for homes that are selling with solar. And, you pay more for solar in California than you do in Florida. Sometimes, though, the house's increased property value is more than we even charge for the solar out here, right? They're seeing $3 to $4 per watt added value on their home
Oh,
sales.
great. Yeah.
I think as we get 5, 6 years down the road, we'll have more comps and we'll have more comparative data to see what Florida's doing. But because of what you mentioned earlier about the industry being so new and a little bit behind the ball, the 8 ball here in Florida, I think we're going to start to see that too. And I've already had the last year with everything that's changed with the real estate in Tampa Bay. I've
Yeah.
had 6, 8 customers that have sold their homes, and they've all been really satisfied with the results of the outcomes.
Yeah, I
Um,
imagine, especially when you're showing a potential buyer your electric bill, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's really easy to brag. Who
Yeah.
wouldn't want a house that has just to pay the customer charge?
Yep. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
Uh,
And what was the other point? I brought up another point. Now I,
monitoring.
oh, yeah, thank you. I'm like, wait, yeah, I
So,
love technology, early adopter. So tell me about that.
sure. So, I'm sure that the systems you did back in the day, and even 5, 6 years ago,
Yeah.
the most common way. So the panels produce direct current. We need alternating current to be usable energy for our homes and businesses. So there has to be a conversion process. And so, the original way of doing it was a string inverter.
Okay.
Very problematic, very easy to lose power if there's a failure or a compromise in that particular string.
Yeah.
Then they went to phase inverters, which would have a power optimizer under the panel that would work with the phase inverter. So more recently, and what we've gotten really good at over the last 3 or so years is micro inverters.
Hmm.
Enphase out of California is the most well-known company that makes those. We're a gold level installer with them.
Oh, great. I
Um,
didn't know that. Yay.
we also do the batteries. They're still kind of expensive, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Some people want them.
Because we're
And so,
hurricane prone.
yeah, we are. Um, they come with a monitoring app. And so, one of the good things about us getting on early and adapting their battery technologies is when you do a battery with a home, you have to have an extra component on your inverter called a consumption meter so that you can see what the panels are producing, but also what your home is consuming.
Okay.
So, we started as an added bonus to all of our customers, including that consumption meter for free. So when you go to pull up your monitoring that's on your phone or any internet enabled device that you choose to use it on, it will show you each panel individually. You can look at day, week, month, or year. Or if you're looking at what most people look at, right, which is today, you can see how many kilowatt hours you've produced and also how many you've burned through in your home. And it'll
Love
give you
that.
cumulative data, right, for that day, that week,
Yeah.
that month, or that year. So at the end of the year, you can look, oh, I produced 17,000 kilowatt hours and I used 16,000, so I have 1,000 extra or whatever the case may be.
Yes, yeah, I love that because there's a hotel that I always stayed at when I went back home to Syracuse. And the funny thing is I only stay there so I can watch their software. And I
Oh,
would take pictures and be like Facebook Live, here I am, Syracuse, New York, the snowiest city in the country. And look, there's solar. Just to be facetious about the lack of solar in Florida. Of course, we're coming a long way. I used to live in Apollo Beach, and of course, we do know that Tico, has the Big Bend solar farm down there, and there's several others. Disappointed that it took them so long, but understood that solar still does, and technically hit their profit line a little bit, and I'm sure it will increase. But I do know that it's better than nothing, and I think that there are still people who have to be educated about it. I still see people saying solar doesn't pay, solar's too expensive, and I have to always remind people that the oil and gas people have major subsidies, major subsidies, and without those subsidies it would cost the same or more than solar power. But that's, just the propaganda that's, been around for years. But clean energy, right? I don't anticipate it, what's the word? Damaging my internal, my body, like nuclear or, natural
Yeah.
gas is a little tricky. So I'm looking forward to that system on my roof. And I know my neighbors are going to be asking me, kind of like the picture behind you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is actually a picture in a neighborhood that's really popular over in the Land O'Lakes, Odessa area. It's called Starkey Ranch.
Yeah.
And the gentleman in the middle signed up with me first. And, within the next 4 or 5 months, both of his neighbors came on board. And I actually just signed up a house right across the street from these three
Yeah.
yesterday. So,
Yeah.
and we've done several other homes in that development. There's a big big write-up about us on their neighborhood Facebook page, and so every once in a
Aw.
while and they'll say, hey, someone recommended you, can you come out? And so and that's what it's all about, because I think it's great for the family, but it should be something we're talking about in our communities, right? Hey
Yes.
neighbor, I'm saving money, and 5 years from now, when your summer electric bill's $450 a month, I'm still going to be paying just my $12 to be connected,
Yes, and the word of mouth is just so good, and because you see the system, so that builds a curiosity, that builds a conversation, and I'm starting to see them pop up, here and there, and all the new subdivisions that are around me up here in Mango Sefner, and it's funny because I've been involved with solar so many years. I mean, even my family and friends will send me pictures of solar arrays that they see, just wherever. I remember flying into Indianapolis years ago, thrilled because as the Southwest is coming down, I'm like, oh, look at all that solar. To me, it's like a bag of candy. So and when we went to Italy, it just was amazing how much solar was out there. And my husband knew it, kind of pointed out to me if he saw something I didn't. And so I just love it, because the technology to me is just awesome, and it's beneficial not only for our health, our environment, but it makes sense. It does, especially, I mean, I do know that our electric's really not as expensive as other areas of the country. But the flip side is we also have, great sun,
Yeah.
great exposure, in most areas. And we moved in here, we cut down those trees that I knew were too close to the house.
Yeah. He actually came out and looked instead of just telling you had too many trees, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, that story is unfortunately going to live in infamy because it's on my Facebook and my Instagram. Yes. So, anybody listening, if you think that your roof has challenges, there's always a solution. In fact, do you guys do ground installations if it had to be a choice, the only choice?
We do, and there's, depending on your county, there's different requirements for
Okay.
property setbacks. So, like in a neighborhood like this, the requirements are going to prohibit it from happening. But if you're
Okay.
sitting on a quarter acre, or larger, we
Yeah.
can usually make it happen. We've done several.
Yeah, that's what we have. We're at 0.37, so I knew if the roof, I wasn't so sure because of the house being older. That's what I said to my husband. Then we're gonna put it right there. you know, but luckily, it ended up being okay. And but there's always a way to mitigate shade. There always is. It's just trees. So
Yep. And I've
and
had customers who opted to do 5,000 plus in tree removal in order to make it work.
yeah, it's worth it. It is, as long, like I said, as long as, you have that space, and you have the willingness to think outside the box. I would love to see a lot more solar. I know we have a long way to go, but I think that the conversation is definitely happening more often than it did last year, 5 years, 10 years ago. And I'm thrilled with that. I'm glad to see builders partnering, with with solar and offering it right off the bat. So that's definitely helpful because the more people see it out there, the more it normalizes it. So it's not
Yeah.
strange and unique anymore.
And a lot of it is about education. 5 years ago, I knew nothing about it. I'd
Mm.
never even considered it for my own home. I had no idea that there was, programs with no money down and you could pay less than you're currently paying for your power bill. And I loved what you said about, the friends sending you pictures and, a kid in a candy store. Cause I'm the same way. My family will be driving in, the Midwest somewhere and they'll send me pictures of an array. My wife and I went and visited a solar panel manufacturing facility a few years ago.
Cool.
One of the main engineers was giving us the tour and he was like, man, I've never seen someone so excited in here. Cause I was just like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, I love it. In fact, I have done a few times. I was the up in intro to solar class at St. Pete College, St. Petersburg College, and I actually had gotten a whole bunch of little solar kits and taught the intro to solar class how to do solar, and they all got little kits, and that was really fun and exciting. And that was a while ago when I was active in the solar industry, but. My kids know, and my whole family, because they kind of thought it was weird that I was going on a Greyhound bus, driving 3 days to study solar engineering. Like, what? So, in New Mexico at that time, the solar energy department for the U.S. was there. We're talking in the 80s, so it was actually there, and that was when Reagan was president. And then, unfortunately, the funding was taken away and put into our military. So from Carter, and that was unfortunate. And my classes were almost all canceled. So they stuck me in the mechanical engineering program, and I was so heartbroken. I was like, I don't want to be a mechanical engineer, but it worked out. A decade later, but it'll always be something I'm interested in, and it'll always be adapting. What do you know that's new on the horizon? Is there anything that is up and coming for home
So,
solar?
it's funny. People always say, oh, maybe I should wait a couple of years because the technology is advancing so rapidly. And I like to use the comparison of cell phones, right? Every year, Apple and Samsung drop their new devices, but it's really not that much better, right? I mean, I think my phone's 2 iterations old now, and it's great. It's as fast as I need. It does everything I need it to do. What we're really seeing with panels is, a little bit more wattage in the same footprint,
Oh, great.
meaning, and it's marginal, right? So I got my system at my home about 3 years ago, and I want to say I have 300-watt panels, and the
Okay.
ones we're selling today, the ones you're getting, is 330 watts, right? So it's not a
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. So incremental
Um,
improvements, but again, let's go back to the cell phone. I used my 6S for years and it worked. It was completely functional.
that's right. And I mean,
Yeah.
you know, solar panels are also, the electronic with the longest warranty of any electronic. The
Yeah.
main panel that we're showing in Florida right now, it has a 30-year performance warranty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. I'll be 71, right? 30 years from now. So
I'm not even
it's
going to say
amazing.
how old I will be.
I wasn't asking. So,
Just tell them to
like,
bring me an extra panel to put on my RV.
nice.
Uh, I have a suitcase solar system that I bring to my markets with me. I mean, I bring things and engage in conversations with people, and get them thinking that, yeah, solar works, and I have one of my friends who took a picture of me at the beach doing work on my laptop with my solar, what I call it a suitcase, and she took a picture and she's from New York and she's like, this is Tina's home office. So, but it engages people thinking about solar, and then as they're thinking about the small level, right, our little, you know um, things that charge your cell phone and your laptop to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great investment. I even saved the voicemail. A guy had gotten the panels and he called about a year later to ask me a question about something. And on the voicemail, he's like, "This is the best investment we've ever made in our home." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Awesome!" I think he shared it on our Facebook page at one point with his permission.
Yeah.
But those kind of responses, it's great. It really is.
Well, the ROI, if again, if you've got it's a long-term investment. So, I wanted to do the shortest loan possible, 10 years, because I knew that it was just worth it, because we're, being self-employed, I'm a tax preparer. So I said, nope, just 10 years. And then the way I look at it, then we've got, 15 years of basically just about free electric. And the way I looked at it is electric's only going to go up. It's not going to go down. So I don't see them decreasing the rates very much at all.
Yeah, that would be unprecedented if it actually went down.
Yeah.
And the other great thing that a lot of people don't think about when they think about ROI is the difference between making a payment that's equitable to some degree and not equitable. I mean, the reason we buy homes rather than stay in the apartment we rented when we first got married, right? I mean, we wanted to feel vested. We wanted to know that that money I'm sending in every month is going to come back to me in some form at some percentage. And with solar panels, it does.
Yes. Yes.
With Duke Energy or Tico, you never see a penny of that money again.
No, you don't. And the funny thing is, when I think about, I see a lot of like, I did a sustainability report for St. Pete College. Again, this was a while ago. Duke offered them a solar system, and I was so disappointed how small it was at the end, and I couldn't believe it. And then when they were building new buildings after that whole thing that they did and not putting solar on it, I just, to me, anybody building a building in the state of Florida, their second conversation should be, what kind of solar system am I putting up there? As a tax preparer and a business consultant, I have a lot of small business owners who own their buildings. And my question always is, because of what I do, why isn't there a solar system on top of that roof? Now in New Jersey, I did something a little bit interesting, because it doesn't work very well in Florida, but you can put a solar system on your roof and an investor will pay you for it. And they get to recapture all of that. The PPA agreements, which still are not working very well here in Florida the way they are in every other state, but North Carolina. So that's a whole other thing.
And that's even newer in Florida, right? Where it was allowable to happen than the other amendments that we got back in 2015, 2016 roundabouts. But and they're doing it all sorts of different ways. I used to live on Long Island until I got married. My mom and I lived up there, and she retired now and moved down to Charleston, South Carolina. But a few years ago, she sent me a picture because they had went back home for a wedding, and they drove by our old place, and there were solar panels all over the roof. And so she sent me the picture. She was like, check that out.
Yeah.
So
and you have to thank New Jersey, because it was truthfully, it was New Jersey. And what happened is New Jersey's system was so antiquated, the power outages were making people angry. So much like California, there was a really big push to do solar, and it's everywhere, even on the street lights. So then the surrounding tri-state area, then Connecticut started doing it, then New York started doing it. And people down here, you look up north going, oh, gee, those are cold, cloudy climates. But you know what? Solar still works. Or what about Germany, right?
Yeah.
Hardly any sun there. So when people have those silly arguments how solar doesn't work, I always bring up states that you would not think would be conducive to, solar energy in countries. And I always push back to people going, what? Wait a minute, So I love pulling those little stories out of my sleeve. And, but again, I will say, this is your show, not mine, or your story. I love driving down the new developments, I love driving around and seeing solar panels on roofs. I bet you do too.
I do. Except for when it's in my neighborhood, because then I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't install that one.
Oh, yeah. That happened to me in an office building up in New Jersey. I pitched to the owner about a solar system, and 2 months later, I saw a solar system on there, and I had nothing to do with it. That's hard. That hurts, doesn't it? Yep. Yes. I'm like, whatever, Phil.
One of my neighbors, like my first 2 or 3 months with a company, maybe 8, 10 houses down, ended up going with a different company after meeting with me. And looking back on it, I realized, because I was very green, I didn't know, I wasn't able to answer all of his questions and stuff, but I still drive by it and I'm like,
yeah. But that's okay. Okay. So what's your perfect pitch for solar?
I always start by asking the customer what they're looking for, what they're hoping to accomplish. Because there's, solar is not like a bicycle. I'm into cycling, and so I use that as an analogy. With a bicycle, you have to have two wheels, or you're in no good shape.
Yeah.
Solar, you can literally design a system for any degree of offset you want. For example, I just signed up a residential homeowner a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, for a 22 kilowatt on his home. That was going to offset about 80%, right? My house has an 11 kilowatt and it's 100%. So there's, all sorts of variables. Start. What are you hoping to accomplish? And then I talk about the ways it saves. You can pay no money now if you so choose, right? We can get you approved and installed with nothing down. First payment for most of our finance options are actually due the second month after install.
Okay.
So you even get a free month right after you get your panels up.
Yay.
As the rates go up, this is a home renovation project that actually increases in value as time goes on, because every time the rates go up, you're keeping more money safe and sound in your bank account where it belongs. And then the big thing is, at whatever point you decide to pay it off, you're done paying for that portion of power. 30-year performance warranty on these panels. But when you look at lifespan, 50, 60 years. I believe it's the Columbia School of Engineering that put panels up there to do some tests back in the 60s, and they're still generating power to some degree.
Yes, I think at 37% or something like that. Well, maybe that was winter though, but yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I was, it's something that they do an annual review of or something like that. And there's systems that I know, like I mentioned before, from the 70s that, are still working, and you're like, wow, amazing. And then when I see people with solar water heater systems, I always go, you know what? Just bite the bullet and do the whole thing. Why just do the piece of the pie when you can eat the whole pie? But
and there's better technology even than the solar water heaters now, because those are still pretty expensive, and you can convert over to like a hybrid unit.
Okay.
And it's we use them with our systems quite often, probably 80+% of the time.
Okay.
You can swap out the old one and save, $300 or $400 worth of electricity just by swapping out that item.
Yeah, because when I talk to Ken, the first thing I'm going to do now, most of the appliance or the hot water heater is at the end of its life, and so is the AC. So I was telling Ken when we talked about that, I said, well, as soon as the water heater is done, we're doing InstaHots, because it makes sense. And normally, I came down here from wholesale construction supply to transfer from New York, and back then, you never wanted to do an electric InstaHot because the theory was electric's so expensive, you got to do a gas one. But if you got a solar panel system, who cares?
I still take into account how many kilowatt hours a year that thing will use.
Yep. I don't care. I don't care. I got plenty. I guess, in what I would say is, you put a solar system, but if you go around and thinking about your house and any kind of electric leaks, then that's just even better. And we have electric leaks. We have an end of life AC unit here, and we have an end of a life water heater here. But one of my business clients is an AC company, and I know they'll work with me very well. And then, like I said, as soon as that water heater goes, we're going to just put our InstaHots, right in our 2 bathrooms and in kitchen, and be a lot more efficient because of the kind of lifestyle we have. And that's another thing. What do you do? If you're growing something, if you got a grow house, you might need a couple more panels. I'm just teasing. Sorry, Covey, to me.
I've actually run into that, so
it may be legal, but yeah. So any final thoughts or?
Well, I'd love to help anybody in Florida that's looking to go solar. You can contact me through Excel Home Solar Facebook page.
Okay.
My Instagram is Solar Covey, SolarCovey.
Okay.
We in Florida, in addition to the solar, we're authorized Generac whole home generator retailers and installers.
Great.
We do water heaters, we do HVACs, but we don't have a huge HVAC company. It's usually limited to customers when they're looking to go solar, when there's that that unit that's dying and really charging up a lot of cost for your electric bill. We also operate in Illinois, Missouri, and Michigan for solar.
Okay.
So if you need solar in any of those states, you can contact me. I can either help you myself or set you up with one of our sales reps in those areas. Our goal is to have this family owned and operated company. We want it to be legacy for the owner's kids and my kids to be a part of it. And we love what we do. So
Great. Great. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to do a little ebook, 10 essential questions to ask before you buy a solar system.
and
That's
I've had
good.
people have those questions when you walk in. They're like, check, check.
Yeah, yeah, but that's good though, because cut to the. I mean, that's what I did with Ken. Poor Ken. I just said, cut to the chase. That's what I want. So, but
When you called me and told me your background, I said, not only does she know more about solar than you, but she probably knows more than me.
oh yeah, and I miss working in the space, but that's life, and who knows. But I will say that I'm always happy to have that conversation. Like I said, friends and family still call me for advice. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I have no problem, jumping on my, my solar contacts to see what state they're in and what they should do. And I'm always like anybody that I know has property. I'm always having that conversation with them because next to your mortgage in your household budget and perhaps your food, usually your biggest bill is either your cell phone or your electric, depending on where you live.
Yeah.
You know, so it just makes sense to me, and especially with the longevity of it. I mean, the panels are sustainable for decades, and you can't
Yeah.
even say that about cars anymore.
Right.
Technically,
Right.
most people don't keep their cars more than 20 years, or some people don't keep them more than 5 years. So depending on who you are, but I'll be putting for those who are listening, all the links for Excel Solar will be on our YouTube page. So if you want to contact Covey or kind of take a look around with Excel, if you personally know me, you can always give me a call, and I will answer any questions before I hand you over to Excel. And of course, as soon as my panels are up, they will be on my Facebook page under our homestead page. And I'm really looking forward to it. Really excited. I'm very patient because I know the permitting does take a little bit because there's so much going on with construction here in the Tampa Bay area. So, well, Covey, thank you so much for sitting with me and letting me talk about one of my loves next to my husband.
It's my pleasure. And we also want to extend a special promotion to anyone that mentions your podcast to
Great.
us. Anyone that has us out and ends up getting a solar system with us through and mentions your podcast, will give a $500 rebate
Oh,
upon completion of their install.
great. Thank you. And so will I just say I heard you on Life and Stories podcast?
That's correct. That's
Great.
all you need to
Awesome.
do.
Yeah. That way I can do a little blurb on there too on the Instagram page. So thank you. That's very kind. And again, we may be talking again after I've had my system for a year so I can be like, look, so we'll have to
Love
follow
that.
up next year.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I had a really nice time.
Yeah, thank you, Covey. And again, I'm with Covey Murray. He is with Excel Solar. And this is Life and Stories. And catch me next time.